So, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Social Shifters podcast. I am joined by the wonderful Samantha Johnson, founder and CEO of Tatum Robotics, and of course, one of the winners of the Open competition for the Global Innovation Challenge 2023. Samantha, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Very much appreciated taking the time. So, how did you react when you found out you're one of the winners?
It's always very exciting. We do a lot of pitches, and we put our whole heart out there, and it's really exciting to do a pitch that's really focused on social impact. A lot of the pitches we do, might be focused in robotics, but to be able to be recognized for our innovation really for that social impact was really exciting for us in our small team.
Wow, that's amazing. Love that. And how many of you are in the team?
Yeah, so we have about 5 people. We're located in Boston, Massachusetts, in the US, and we're based out of a robotics incubator space here called Mass Robotics. So there are about 73 companies, and our small little team has a little office here, but we work really hard to really push. We do all of our in-house manufacturing here. We do the work of many with our small little team.
I love it. Like team of Avengers, small team making things,
Yes.
all right? Yeah. So talking of like superheroes, the Avengers, as you know, every superhero has an origin story. Are you into the superheroes much?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
have a brother. He would be devastated if I wasn't.
And like who do you like? Which heroes do you like?
Oh, well, we have to love all of the new women superheroes, of course. But, I grew up with all the Iron Man tales. So if I was going to have to answer, I'd have to answer Iron Man would have to be my first pick.
That makes total sense, especially if what you do. So
I guess so. I didn't even connect the two, but I guess so.
yeah. And so as you know, like Iron Man, Tony Stark, he's got his origin story. And of course, you have your origin story. So tell us please a bit about Samantha. Were you always entrepreneurial? How did Tatum Robotics come about? So yeah, just a bit about the origin story, please.
Yeah, not at all. I actually had no entrepreneurial spirit really growing up, going into college. And I went to school studying engineering, and my goal was really to go into assistive technology. I wanted to support people with disabilities. That's something I'd been passionate about all growing up. And it was actually just kind of lucky that I ended up in this space. I wanted to do assistive technology. So in my engineering kind of curriculum, I decided to take an American Sign Language class. I figured learning some sign could just be beneficial if I went into the space later. And part of the class is to go out into the deaf community and practice your signing, learn more about the culture. And on one of those outings, I met a deaf-blind woman, and I was immediately just fascinated about how she received language. So, because she can't hear or see, she actually grabbed onto my hand while I was signing. And that's how she was able to receive the language, just through
Oh,
holding onto my hand. And I was amazed, really, just how she was able to receive language with so little input. And just her outlook on life was so optimistic and so exciting. And I just began chatting with her about, how she experiences the world. And she quickly was chatting with me about how she's very isolated and alone. And when she's at home, she's completely alone. And she essentially just waits for someone to arrive at her house because she has no means of communicating with them when she's at home by herself. And I was early in my undergrad at the time, and I was fascinated with the community and just kind of kept up with them, volunteered when I could. And it was really during the COVID pandemic when I started reading articles about how it was really devastating to the deafblind community, this social distancing that was happening for the deafblind that rely exclusively on this sense of touch for communication. It was devastating. I was reading articles of deafblind people crawling through buildings or crawling through streets. And so I just reached out to some of the other advocates in the deafblind community, and we started chatting about what we could develop, what kind of assistive communication tools we could make. And so for my master's thesis, I decided to make an early stage prototype of a tactile signing system. So it was a very, 3D printed out of my apartment because the university was closed, robotic hand that we tested with some deafblind people. And the feedback we got was incredible. Really, they were so excited about what we were making. They were excited to give their feedback. And so when I graduated in 2021, I decided to spin it out. We got resounding support from the deafblind community, and we got some early stage grant funding from some deafblind community groups. And that's how Tatum Robotics got started.
my next question I was going to ask you is about talking about the importance of the issue that you're tackling. And I think some of the things that you mentioned there, like people crawling through the buildings. Do you say that was during COVID? Like,
Yeah, during COVID, because essentially, like for example, at universities, interpreting services just stopped because it was suddenly dangerous. And there was no way to really communicate that to deafblind people. A lot of deafblind people can't, get traditional forms of media. They can't read a letter, or some don't receive email. So they just didn't know what was going on. And so they just started crawling around to see if they could find somebody to support them.
uh,
And this is something that obviously was inspired due to the heightened sensitivity to the issue during COVID. But this is an issue constantly. Deafblind children are 23 times less likely to go to school. They're 6 times more likely to be depressed due to isolation and loneliness. So it really is just a problem that COVID really helped us see, and helped really just kind of the greater community understand that feeling of isolation and loneliness as well. We were all in our homes, we were all isolated in that way, and everyone could kind of appreciate that plight a little bit more. And we were able to kind of use that momentum to push forward.
yeah, for sure. I think, like you said, during that period, people will be even more naturally inclined to be able to relate to that feeling of isolation and the endemic. We've seen of loneliness, which is happening and still being spoken about, a more pressing issue. So yeah, that wow, like yeah, the work you're doing is so cool. So first of all, how did you come up with the name Tatum Robotics? It's a very cool name.
Thank you. Well, when in academia land, pretty much everything needs to have a name. I was writing a paper about a robot hand, and my advisor was like, it needs to have a name. And so I started finding an acronym that would probably fit it. And I was tactile, American Sign Language, translation. And so I fit it to the name Tatum. And then it kind of stuck. Once we decided to start the company, we just kind of kept that name of Tatum Robotics. And it's one of those names that has that origin in kind of where we got started in academia, but now kind of shows that kind of moving forward in industry this way.
Cool name, very cool project. What you guys are doing. Can you talk a bit about how like the impact you're having so far with the group special issue that you're trying to tackle?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the deafblind community historically underserved, very little technology in the space, and we see that in more ways than one. And we have been really lucky that we would obviously wouldn't be doing this project. The deafblind community wasn't fully behind us. We obviously were doing it because they want it. But whenever we get new deafblind people in to test our devices, we haven't commercially launched yet. We're definitely still, in that R&D stage. But this is even more important that we bring in all these deafblind people now. We have deafblind people kind of on our immediate team, but you design for one, you create a product for one. So it's really important that we really travel around. We get this other feedback, and we get deafblind people in our office. I always make the joke that I get more hugs than any startup founder has ever gotten, because truly we start signing to them, and we start getting hugs. We have had many people crying in our office, just kind of speaking to how they see this being beneficial for them, really seeing how this could be an impact in their daily life to help them know what the weather is outside, or help them call a friend. And it really is exciting to create this technology in just a space that they don't have technology now. There isn't anything in this space as it stands. So allowing us to create this early stage technology, we're now seeing deafblind people come to us with other technology ideas. We're creating a doorbell for deafblind people. We're creating emergency alert notifications. And it's just the deafblind community is now seeing us as a group that they can come to with their ideas. And that's really exciting as well, to be able to be that support system for the community.
That's incredible. There's so much. There's so much. So please, yeah, did you say some of those cool projects, like other ideas that you're thinking of doing? Like, do you seem it seems very, every organization talks about listening to their audience, listening to their customer. It seems like you're actually like almost entwined with them, and they're a proper part of like all the decision making that you're making forward, going of different products, services that you're trying to offer. Is that how
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. Yeah, and especially as a team, I'm a hearing sighted woman. I can't make decisions for the deafblind community. I don't know their needs. And there's so many examples of things that I design and I think, oh, the deafblind community, they're gonna love this. This is the end of everything. We're all done. Check the box. The deafblind community comes in and like, this is terrible. This is awful. I don't like it. I don't receive well from it. But that's absolutely like, well, the goal that we're doing is, as I mentioned, I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur to build a business because of this spirit. I have a business because there's this community that urged me to push forward, and I have a passion for kind of supporting them. And so naturally, everything we do, we want to make sure we're pushing their goals forward first. And we have a deafblind consultant that works with us frequently, and she likes to row. She in crew. And her dream is to row in her own boat, and she can't do that right now because she doesn't know, when to row on the left and when to the right, on the right, slower, faster. And so we started creating some early stage tactile feedback devices that she could wear, and a coach could tell her which way to go. And it's a small project. It doesn't, it takes an engineer a few weeks to create these early prototypes, but it means something to show that we're listening, that we can potentially support her in other areas other than just this communication tool.
No, that's amazing. That's incredible. I'm looking forward to following the journey of what you're doing. And I noticed, like, when you're speaking, you said like hear and sighted. So how important is it, you think, to use the correct language when speaking about the subjects and the people involved and the topic in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as I've entered this space, you start to see really there is a lot of no one's trying to be disrespectful, but people do not understand sort of the words you're supposed to be using, the ethics that you're supposed to be using. We have a lot of presentations where we'll bring in, outside people, just kind of roboticists. And if we have deafblind people in the room, what that etiquette looks like. And I read papers that weren't even put out that long ago, and it might say, dumb and mute, or all of these terms that are so disrespectful to the community and their purpose and their capabilities. And I think that the term deafblindness has really, in terms of where it's been capitalized and how it's been put together, has varied over the years, but really just making sure that you're speaking to the community with that respect, as these are people that they have jobs, they have families, they are highly capable people, and to kind of diminish that is something that one of our main goals is really just to spread awareness. And on our website, we have all of these stories of just deaf-blind people just genuinely speaking about their day to day. This woman talks about how she lives alone and what that looks like. This one woman talks about having children, what that looks like as a deaf-blind woman, because I think when you think of a deaf-blind person, you might not think of anything, honestly. You might not have kind of a background to know, but really just giving this a space that people can start to understand, okay, I am hearing and sighted, and people might be deaf and blind. What does that mean? What does that difference in our experience look like? How can I support them? How can I be a service or a support person for them in that community without, trying to kind of save them? They're not struggling, but really, how can we support them and give them that access that we take advantage of?
No, that makes total sense. Samantha, you come across as very emotionally intelligent. And
I'm just gonna have you follow me around if you don't mind. Our newest cheerleader.
yeah, I can like even from everything you're doing, everything you're saying, speaking, like there's a high level of empathy, sympathy, with just respect, thoughtfulness, just a lot of that going on. So yeah, no, that's really cool, and it makes total sense of why Tatum Robotics is doing so well. So yeah, shout out you.
Oh,
And
thank
like
you.
out of you, like you said, you wasn't necessarily really entrepreneurial, but you've came across this and you've been fueled with your passion and you've seen the problem that you've beginning to tackle. What is the biggest challenge you've faced so far, would you say, during your journey? And how long have you taken robotics and have been going? How long has it been going?
Yeah, so we started the company in September 2021. So we're starting up this third year, which is exciting.
Nice.
But there's been a lot of challenges, and a lot of them really do center around the fact that we're designing for people that have never been designed before. There's not a paper I can read and understand what the UI looks like for a deafblind person. And as I mentioned, in designing for people with disabilities and designing for any consumers, if I just design for one, it's only going to support that one person. So we do need to do all of this travel. We need to really understand the use. I needed to learn to sign. I'd taken that American Sign Language class, ASL 1, and I could introduce myself. But really, if I want to communicate with my customers, I need to learn the language. So it's been a really fun learning curve. And one of my favorite parts of the job is I get to learn something new every day, whether it's, learning new signs, whether it's building my skills as an engineer or as a businesswoman, really starting to build up how do you build a business? That's not an expertise that I had. I had never taken a class on it. What are the resources that I have around me? How can I build mentors in that community and this team to really help support kind of what our mission is? And I think that's been something that's been really exciting when I started the company, fresh out of college and really not having that confidence to speak to what we're doing and the impact that can have, to really growing to now, to really seeing what we've been able to produce, what we've been able to kind of the funding we've been able to accomplish, the prototypes we've been able to develop as this small team that we are, just really helped me as a leader grow this confidence and just really grow as a manager and a boss that's as well.
You mentioned a lot in terms of the different challenges, whether it is like being a leader, being new to business, different engineering challenges, learning the language, all of these different things. What would you say is the biggest thing that you learned from your biggest challenge going through this?
Yeah, I would say probably our biggest challenge to date has really been you get so much feedback, especially as a young entrepreneur, first-time founder. Everyone kind of gives you opinions, you know? And really, I think the biggest challenge, especially in the early stages, is what's the right thing to do? We got a lot of feedback in the early stages of, you know, you develop the prototype, then just ship it out. Somebody else will take it further. We'll take it from there, and you get a contract manufacturer, and they'll build it. And it just didn't seem right to me. I'm like, how would they know the needs of the deafblind people, these contract manufacturers? How would they know? And really, a big challenge for me as somebody who didn't know is really what is that best step to go forward? And I think it's been really exciting to take on these technical challenges ourselves. We built a hand and it was overheating. These deafblind people, they don't know how to interact with it. They're holding it at the wrong space. How can we design for that as engineers? I think it's a really fun technical challenge to really decide, what are these key challenges and how can we design for them? And to see as we make these design improvements, the deafblind experience with the robot becomes so much clearer. And then when we first started, the feedback we were getting from deafblind people was like, oh, it's really cool. It's really confusing. Here's a long list of changes.
Yeah.
And the questions we get now are, when is it going to be available? Can you give me stories about horses? I would love to learn more, and it's really exciting to see that they can see their impact on it, their feedback, and how we can grow forward that way. And that's kind of the feedback I always give now as a mentor now, which is, silly to me. I've only been doing this for a few years, but now I can mentor other people, is you get so much feedback and really sit with it. Don't just kind of run at every feedback point you're given. Really, every time a mentor might suggest something to you, sit back, your company better than anybody and really understand what would be best for you and growing your business that way.
No, for sure. Like it's your baby as well, right? So you mentioned mentorship as well at the end. How like important do you have a mentor yourself? Is it something important to you?
Absolutely. I've had many mentors over the past several years. And I think what's been exciting is really seeing what those mentors look like. At first, early stages, it was people that know how to run a business, and what does that look like? How do you develop out a P&L? How do you develop out, your growth strategies, these things that were terms I did not know. And my mentors now, a lot of them are on, continued growth or on building your headspace as a leader. And really, it's varied in kind of the needs that I've had, but it's also really exciting to learn from these talented, impressive engineers, business people. And I think something that I've seen a lot as a space as well is this robotics incubator that we're at. When I started here 3 years ago, there were 3 women in the office. There's 73 companies and there's 3 women. And now seeing there's, 30 now, and it's growing, and it's exciting to see as somebody who, when I was looking for mentors when I first started, I had a lot of old white male mentors, which that's who was in the business landscape. And now to kind of, when I can look for mentors, I can also look for people that look like me, who think like me, and I can be kind of more strategic in who I pick to help grow the business and a mindset that I can feel confident with and feel stand behind. And it's exciting now to be able to be a mentor to, girls in STEM or, these people in entrepreneurship that are also looking for mentors that maybe look a little bit more like them or behave a little bit more like them and give back to the community that way.
No, I love that. Representation matters. So yeah, no, that's huge. So like if there's a young entrepreneur such as yourself at home just starting out and they're listening and they haven't got the most extensive network, how would you recommend for them to go around finding, say, a mentor?
Yeah, I would say I leaned a lot on my university, even though I didn't study engineering, even though I only studied engineering and studied business. There are so many alums who went to the university that want to give back, and there's a robust network of alumni who want to be mentors. So I leaned a lot on my university, but also now I lean a lot on just the people around me. I meet incredible people. I go to networking events. I'm part of these cohorts of founders and asking questions. I think you can learn something from everybody, and everybody's had such a varied experience that a mentor doesn't need to be somebody who's 40 years older than you, that's had 3 companies and all these things. A mentor can be somebody who's almost at a similar space than you, that has an outlook, who can have conversations with you about these difficult questions that you may have. So I think obviously if you went to university and you have that network, that's a great place to start. But don't feel like if you didn't go to university, you don't have that space. I sometimes even mentor high school students that have these incredible ideas for businesses as 16-year-olds, and they've already programmed and designed and developed complex robotics. I'm amazed by the youth of today. But they often ask, where do I look? And it's like, you can talk to your friends, see if somebody's parent was in a space that could be beneficial. Talk to, you're talking to me. That's incredible. Somehow you reached out to me on LinkedIn. And I find that especially, if you're a young entrepreneur in the space, people want to support you. People want to be in whatever sort of resource and partner that they can be in that way.
No, I really like it, really helpful and some real practical advice there. So like your team of five, right? How did you all come together? Were you all studying together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very interestingly, the first person I brought on when I studied kind of engineering. I do a lot of the hardware development, CAD, prototyping, 3D printing, things like that. And there's this whole language element of American Sign Language, or sign languages in general, that are different than spoken languages. So English and American Sign Language are not one-for-one languages. They're completely different. And I knew that they were different, but I didn't know how. I also don't know the complexities of English and how you analyze the morphosyntax of it. And I had actually just remembered that in my American Sign Language class, there was another student who was studying English and American Sign Language in a linguistics form. And I reached out to her on Facebook, and I connected with her and just asked, if this is what I'm working on, is this something you'd like to get involved in? And that was the first person we brought on board, the first kind of hire. And I also got very lucky. My father is a very talented software engineer. So
Amazing.
as we got started, he jumped on board too, to help support kind of our software efforts. And now that we're kind of building out the team more, we again work with the university, see if there's talented students. People reach out to us, they reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our website, and they talk about their passion for disabilities, for working with, special needs peers. And that's something that we always try to support, is really people with that like mindset, and how we can look at, robotics is, there's so much happening. You have embedded systems, you have software infrastructure, you have hardware, you have, there's so many different spaces. What do we need in a team, and who can help fill that while still kind of maintaining that mindset that we're all kind of mission focused?
Now, that is so cool. Really cool. I love how you said your father's helping as well. I really like that as well, because sometimes, especially when it's unconventional routes like entrepreneurial and stuff, you'll find a lot of young entrepreneurs or people who are aspiring to be one maybe feel apprehensive if their parents aren't behind them, supporting them, but your dad literally in the trenches with you, which is amazing, trying to help you build it and grow. So shout out, Ellie.
So lucky that, especially having, software engineering, that's expensive as well. To have somebody in your team that, can support you in this early stages and help you get to those prototypes is, beyond helpful. And also just having, again, he in a way can be a mentor for me. I can ask my questions. He has experience that I don't. How can we ping off of each other? And it was something that when I first got started, I was almost embarrassed about, especially a young female founder. I was like, oh gosh, my dad is there supporting me. But it's really something that I've learned to leverage. It's something that he is a smart, talented, capable software engineer. Why would I not want this person on my team? And it's something you see more. There's so many companies here that, their parents are also involved in the companies that way. So it's something that I have grown to really appreciate. And I'm so thankful that we've been able to do this together and push the company forward.
That's incredible. Yeah. So, so much cool stuff happening. So many brilliant things you've spoken about. What's your vision for Tatum Robotics? Like, where would you like it to be 5, 10 years, however far in the future you want it to go, ultimately?
Yeah. We write this in grants all the time, and everyone's always like, you're thinking too far ahead. I'm like, absolutely not. I think that it's something that, right now we're working on this device that will help deafblind people, read books, emails in their homes and things. But I've seen how excited deafblind people are to be able to go to Dunkin' Donuts with me to get a coffee, because they can't go if I'm not there with them. If this could be something that there's a robot in Dunkin' Donuts to allow deafblind people to go and get their own coffee whenever they want. This is something that I've heard horrible stories of deafblind people not being able to access emergency care because when they walk into the emergency department, there's nobody there to support them. It's something, if this could just be the tool that allows them to be like, my stomach hurts. That's why I'm here before the interpreter gets there, just to help alleviate some of that stress and anxiety. So I really hope that kind of this flagship product that we're making can help make the greater world accessible for deafblind people. But more than that, it's these small projects that also get me excited. It's, beyond just communication, how can we make recreational sport more accessible for deafblind people? How can we make a doorbell accessible for deafblind people? These just fun projects just to, bring the deafblind people into this technological revolution that we all, take advantage of. How can we make this an equal split playing field for the deafblind as well?
So if you could go, so you started September 2021 at Tatum Robotics. If you can go back and speak to your younger self just before you started, what one piece of advice would you give to yourself?
I think when I started, and you could ask anybody who knew me at the time, I'd be like, I'll give it a year, see what happens. I'll give it a year. And then I'd be like, I don't know, it could work. I don't know. We'll try it out. We'll try it out. And I think the main thing I would say is just give it a real try. I think for a long time, I kind of had a couple, my feet were wet, but it was one of the things that it's scary to jump into a company, to dedicate your life to this purpose that you're like, I don't know that I can do it.
Mm.
Who am I to say that I can revolutionize accessibility for the deafblind, but it's really something that jump in with both feet, really give it your full college try and really see what you can produce. And I think I can really see in the landscape of the business as well where that shift was for me when I really started to see, wait, we can make this. We can see the improvement, and you can start to see how the business started to grow. You can see the funding we started to get. You can see how our prototypes started to improve. So I think no matter how scary, if you really trust that, you had that entrepreneurial spirit and you were listening to the community, what you're making people want, that's the biggest piece of advice I give everybody who wants to go into entrepreneurial. Make something that people want, ask around, make sure what you're building people want. And if you know and you trust in your heart that people want what you're building, go for it, give it your best shot. And, now is the best time to do it. There's so much access to, with cloud computing or open source softwares, you can do it, give it your best shot and lean on the team around you. And I'm sure you'll create something incredible.
No, I love that. I can really see one of these like massive tech companies, the Googles, the Apples, the Microsoft of the world coming to speak to you from the future, trying to knock on your door for some of your accessibility with all the stuff that you're doing. Genuinely, I think like that bit where you're talking about making that jump and starting, how do you think your kind of self-belief got to that point? It was like, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I'm doing this, going to make this happen, sort of thing. Like, where did that self-belief come from, do you think?
Yeah, I think it came from a lot of different places. I think it first needed to come from purely myself trusting that I'm a capable engineer, I'm a capable leader, I'm a capable businesswoman. And I think especially when you get started, people will tell you that. I had mentors that are like, you're doing incredible, you're pushing forward, great job. And it really has to be you seeing the progress, really. And I think actually we had an early stage validation, and I looked at the picture of the prototype that we had made compared to what I had made 6 months prior in my thesis. And I remember looking at that being like, that's really good. That's actually really impressive, and how a year and a half prior, I didn't even know how to move a servo. I'd never used a 3D printer. And giving yourself a little bit of patience,
Mm.
I think especially, we're in this incubator space surrounded by all these incredible, talented engineers, companies, and it's easy to be like, oh my gosh, they just raised $3 million,
Yeah.
all these things. But give yourself a little bit of patience and really be like, I did a really good job and I can see how I could grow going forward. And I think it's especially these grants like, social shifters who they see you as well. And a lot of the early stage money we got, might be from the university and you're like, oh, well, I got it because I went there, but you see these people starting to believe in you and you're like, wow, if this enterprise across the world supports what we're doing something great and we can make it happen.
Love that. Very special. So, if anyone wants to keep up with the story, which I'm sure anyone who's listening to this will want to keep up with what you're doing, Tatum Robotics, the whole team, where can they find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a website, tatumrobotics.com. That should be, there's a lot of great information on there. And as I mentioned about the deafblind community as well, if you're interested in learning more about the deafblind experience, about the numbers, about the where to get more resources, there's a great place to look. We also have an Instagram at Tatum Robotics. We have a LinkedIn at Tatum Robotics, Facebook, and all of the common platforms. And what we really try to do is give different information on all those different platforms. We find that deafblind people tend to access Facebook more than LinkedIn. So we tend to put more technical input on LinkedIn if that's the part that interests you. If you're interested in the deafblind outreach part, different platforms. So be sure to follow us on it all.
No, amazing. I love how you know the nuance of your audience on the different platform, because every organization around the world should be thinking like that. What's the difference? Because there are different behaviors, different psychographics as well on these things. So
Absolutely.
what is the best way if someone's watched this whole episode and listened and thought, actually, do you know what? I want to support Tatum Robotics. It's incredible. How can I get involved? What's the best way to support you in your mission?
Yeah, some of the best ways can even just be sharing what we're doing. I think as we're always trying to inform the deafblind people of what we're doing. And it's a fun community, they're off the grid in a lot of ways. As a result, a lot of them don't know what we're working on. So if you know somebody who's deaf or deafblind, let them know what we're working on, see if they want to get involved. And hopefully in that way, you also want to, start learning sign, maybe get involved, volunteer with the community. And that's kind of our overall goal is, as I mentioned, spread awareness, but also, what we're building is for the deafblind community. So the more people that know about us, the better our product can be and the more people we can support.
Is there anything you'd want to share that I haven't asked you about? Anything on your mind, any thoughts you'd want to share?
Yeah, I don't think you talked at all about how incredible the social shifters are and how you have supported us. And I think, and you mentioned at the beginning what it meant for our team. And I think that's something that can't really be underplayed. I think, as I mentioned, we're a small team, and the deafblind community, a lot of people don't know about us. It's hard for us to find these early funding, and being supported in that way means so much to us and so much to our stakeholders, and really will be able to be seen in the improvements that we make in our prototypes going forward.
One of the great things I love about being part of the Social Shifters team is meeting people like yourself, making some incredible things happen. This is the first challenge that I've been through this year, Global Innovation Challenge 2023. And the level of all of these very cool, organizations, companies making things happen with all different types of ideas. And yeah, Tatum Robotics, one of the special ones as well. So, much appreciated. Thank you so much, Samantha, for your time. Very special what you're doing, and I will be personally myself supporting and cheerleading from the side and trying to get involved and help in any way that I can. So much appreciated for your time. Well done.
Thank you so much for this outlet and kind of spreading the word, and thank you for your support. And I do know you'll be our new biggest cheerleader, and I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you.
If you want to learn more about social shifters and how we can help you to impact the social or environmental issues that matter to you most, subscribe to our YouTube channel or find us on Instagram and Spotify.